Hi everyone, my name is Anna Fiore. I am the Director of Grants and Services at the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council, LMCC, and I'm really excited to have some time today to speak with three of our 2020 SU-CASA artists in residence. The SU-CASA program is a partnership between the New York City Council, the Department of Cultural Affairs, and the Department for the Aging, along with the 5 local borough councils here in New York. And it places wonderful artists at senior centers across the 5 boroughs to engage in participatory art making programs, explorations of different artistic practices, and usually this happens over a 6-month period, but obviously we are all working in a very different reality at the moment. So I look forward to hearing about how all of you are doing and more about each of your practices and the programs you had designed for SU-CASA. So to get started, I'd love to just have each of you introduce yourselves. Natasha, you can kick us off.
Thank you, Anna, for the introduction and also for giving us the opportunity to share about our creative process and our program. I am happy to be part of SU-CASA. 2020, I teach poetry in art in Fort Washington in the community of Washington Heights. And my workshop is called Canción Madre in Español, and is Mother Son, the translation, which is a Spanish poetry workshop for senior participants.
Thank you. And Jing, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Jing Dong, and I'm a SU-CASA teaching artist working with Hamilton Madison Knickerbocker Village, New York Senior Services and a theatrical storytelling workshop. And I'm very happy to be here today to connect with you all and to talk about how we're doing and about our practices.
Thank you. And Lisa.
Hello, buenos dias. It's nice to see everyone. I hope everybody's feeling well today and nice to get back together. We have a creative way of bridging this gap thanks to SU-CASA. My workshop is the Spanish Guitar Workshop, which was located at the Kothova Center in Washington Heights. And my students are learning the basics of guitar or returning to the guitar after trying it maybe a while back and getting some new instruction.
That's great. Yeah, so LMCC is supporting, or was supporting 20 SU-CASA residencies this year across different artistic disciplines. And I think this is a lovely little sampling of what some of those programs looked like. And I know each of you, some of you are participating in SU-CASA for the second time, or you've had experience with the program before, and some of you, this was your first year participating in the program. So maybe you could share a little bit more about how you had started working at the senior centers and what you were starting to kind of explore with the older adults there before we all went into our pause phase here in New York.
I could start.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So I'm lucky and fortunate to have this opportunity for a second time, and I'm working still in the community of Washington Heights. So my approach was like, what should I do? What can I do to inspire my participants to join me? So I read poetry during lunch, and I was going through the tables, talking to them, showing that it's not just, poetry can be intimidated for men. It's a pressure of self-expression. And I was reading poetry in the microphone during lunch for my first experience last year. And that worked because I started with a love poem, very simple, very short. Like, this is what we can just read and discuss and enjoy and try to write as well. But my approach was, you already are in a stage of wisdom. the great and the magnificent thing of working with senior participants is that they are right there, and we have the capacity to show them or to improve their quality of lives with these workshops. And I have great experiences. And before our pause, I was working with a small group, but very committed, that they always in their life had this interest and attraction to poetry, but felt intimidated. And my goal was to make them feel comfortable in the room, which is a safe room. I always said that, giving them short readings as well and discussions, and have life as a source of inspiration for this craft.
Yeah, that's great. One of my favorite things about the SU-CASA program is, and creative aging work in general, is that it really is a collaboration between the artists and the participants, because the older adult participants bring so much lived experience and particular interest and curiosity to each program. So it's always really special to see how things adapt and unfold in collaboration with them. And Jing, how did your program begun?
So before this COVID-19 situation started, I was basically still in a recruitment phase. Although I started my workshops pretty early, it was already for 3 or 4 weeks, I think. But I was still trying to recruit people from visiting their lunch events, visiting their Valentine's Day events, and also talking to people who play cards there every day, and talking to people who play mahjong, because there are Chinese speaking community and Italian speaking community there. So I was trying to approach both groups and make friends with them and see what they need. I also went to their culture club to get to know them and see if anyone is interested in this workshop, because to them it's relatively new, because I was trying to combine theater techniques with storytelling. And I also tried some activities like creating visual arts together and incorporate it into storytelling, and also bring in our personal memories into storytelling. And by the time we stopped the workshop, I had a pretty small, compact group with 3 or 4 people, and sometimes 1 or 2 people. But we really enjoyed the workshop, and they liked it. And I was expecting more people to join, and this thing suddenly happened.
Yeah, sometimes those introductions and getting to know the senior center is such a big part of the SU-CASA program, and kind of understanding what the energy and life and dynamics of each senior center were. So I think all of you were kind of on the upswing when we unfortunately had to pause the programs. And Lisa, how had your program begun?
Hi, yes, I can relate to the going around the tables and, trying to play something to get their attention, go around the room. But in the Kosowa Center, which is in Washington Heights, once they saw the Spanish guitar, they didn't need too much of an explanation as to what it was about. But I did emphasize that we'll be learning the instrument. However, if you want to come as a singer or someone who just always liked the guitar, or maybe dance, play a little later on in the workshop, percussion along, also come by. So it was building after a couple of weeks of, promotion. Then the third time we went, we just started the workshop and really got a dedicated core group. There was some variety from week to week. If 1 or 2 people couldn't make it, or there could be a few new people. But I also set it up in such a way that it seemed the regulars also came in earlier, and they would have their regular seat at the table. And really tuning the instrument is a tremendous challenge. So by the time everyone's in tune, if a couple people came in and they were more like observers, there was room to sit around and join in. And, you know, it was a fantastic group. It was really building momentum in terms of getting, it was already had met maybe 5 or 6 weeks before we had to stop. So they were making progress. To the point where now we had more lesson plans we could, you know, go around. And I was working with my partner also and starting to split up the group so we could work with the group and then take one person for a private lesson off to the side, which was part of the proposal, because it can be a group activity, but you need that one-on-one. So that's why, you know, I do think I always stressed throughout that people have to work at home. Some of them were borrowing the instruments during class, but we had arranged through the materials, which was incredible, to buy some guitars. And I had the students sign them out, promising to come to class every day, every week, in case they couldn't make a class, let us know if they had the guitar. And they were just so responsible. And one fellow actually returned his guitar. He said, you know what, I found a guitar of my own, so I'm bringing this one back for other people to use, and things like that. It was full of, you know, one nice thing after another. So I'm super excited to, you know, let everyone know from my workshop and beyond that, you know, we care and we plan to get back together someday, but in the meantime, we're going to do this online.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that as we all, you know, started to stay at home, and of course the senior centers had to close and, you know, are focusing mostly on meal distribution right now. I think each of you have found a different way to adapt in this moment. And Lisa, I know you already produced an instructional video that folks can do at home and that we've luckily been able to put on our website. But yeah, Lisa, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what your approach to, you know, your practice and being able to teach or not in this moment has been.
Right. So I thought about it quite a bit, and I have to say this particular group is really beginners. So that's what it boils down to. So with beginners, every time you have to start fresh, and even as a person who's been playing guitar their whole life, every day you pick up the instrument, you have to start fresh, and you'll build on what you did if you continue practicing on a regular basis. But if you missed a day or two, you really set yourself back so much. And that applies to a beginner or professional. It really doesn't matter. It's just that there's a lot of repetition, and it's always going back. So I was trying to instill in my students that it's okay. And, you know, with adult beginners, there's always, you know, a little, people who don't want to feel that they don't know something. But I did find in my group, you know, they had a tremendous attention span, and they were working very hard. And for some reason, it happened to be mostly male in the group, but it was all business about actually getting the notes and focusing on that. So when I said, well, how can I make a video for them? I thought, well, let's go with what I really expected them to have learned up to that point and a little beyond. So it would have stretched into the next couple of weeks of what they were doing. And of course, what's missing in the video is the singing and the dancing, but the guitar playing part, which is at the core of what I'm trying to get them to learn, is what I want to focus on in the instructional video, so that they could review it if they want to do it a couple times a week, go back to it. Yeah, like a live, you know, a live lesson.
Yeah, and to be able to continue that practice during this time. Yeah.
Right. I mean, when the idea of staying at home and practicing to a musician, that's what we're supposed to do. So that's the only, you know, one good thing you can say about being on the lockdown. We're supposed to be home practicing our instrument. So it has, most musicians are taking advantage of that extra time to work on things that they normally don't have time to work on in their music. So that's been interesting, communicating with other musicians and people who travel and normally don't have time to get in touch. You hear from them now. So there are a couple of good points.
Yeah. And Jing, have you been able to stay in touch with your participants at all, or how have you kind of been thinking about adapting your teaching practice now?
Yeah, so at the beginning I thought about like if we could move this practice online, but most of my seniors are in their 80s and 90s, so they don't use smartphone even. So it was hard to do that. So I tried to be in contact with them by calling them and talk to them. But it's hard to imagine doing a theater workshop online because we need the level of intimacy with each other, the trust and the access to materials to make things, to use objects. So, but I try to like talk to them and make sure they're okay and see what their needs are and see if I could help. So I sent some masks to a senior so that she could go out to get mail and take a walk. And besides that, in terms of my personal teaching, because I'm also working on an ensemble-based original theater piece. So I was lucky with that group because it's an intergenerational group. So I was able to conduct online workshops. So it was really fun and challenging because I have to rethink a lot of the activities and finding new forms for them to make them effective online and enjoyable. So in that group, I also have a senior member. So that was much easier because she was with us when we were doing the in-person workshops. So every time after a workshop, I would make a phone call to her and tell her what happened during the workshop and what other members have created. And that also was inspiring to her. She could feel like she's still in the group with us, and every time she creates something and tell it to me, and I can share with other members. So in that way, I stay connected with that senior member.
Yeah, that's incredible. Natasha has also been trying to use the phone to connect with your older adult participants. Can you tell us a little bit about how that's been going for you?
Absolutely. My participants are in the same age, 80, 50, 90. So I asked them, and they don't feel comfortable using technology, even though the senior center I worked with in 2019, they are teaching via Zoom. But I decided, I think this moment calls for poetry. I will never desire this to be the moment in which people discover poetry or they practice their imagination, but it has been a source of calm. So I decided, let's be very basic and very simple to touch base phone calls. So I'm redesigning my program to be, my friend gave me this idea, a hotline of poetry. And I select readings, poems that can bring joy, and an exercise to be present with a lot of images and reflection. And it's like I have been practicing this with one participant. It's like my test. And it was great. We had this call with these readings. I read poetry to her, and she sent me with this situation that we're facing. Her poetry is shorter and more hermetic and precise, and is part of how we are trying to understand. We have no precedent of what we're living, and she has neighbors facing the sickness, and she is surrounded by the risk of contagion. So poetry is refreshing for her life, the sound of poetry. She writes in English though. We have conversations in both languages. So as an artist, I have been sending her my first baby steps in English poetry, and as you were saying, is then a collaboration. And it's amazing when you wake up and you see she sends me an email because she wants to continue She took some weeks though, I mean, to adjust to all this information. But then the voice is back. And I hope then to redesign in this program with a hotline for poetry and some short videos with assignments and instructions. And then we have the workshop individually by the phone, because it's the technology they feel most comfortable with. And I think it's very romantic as well. The phone.
Hi, I just wanted to say that I'm incredibly impressed with that idea, the poetry hotline. That's wonderful. And also, I'm working on a newsletter and assignments to actually mail to my participants, and they're coordinating that to, let them know if it's okay to mail them something, and that way they have their homework, but also, that surprise of getting a physical something in the mail for those who, have a little trouble getting online, or just as a, as a reinforcement to the online lesson. But poetry hotline, that's beautiful. And in music also, you feel that it's helping the people to filter out the bad things and, look into spiritual of what's really important to you and your companion for your life of music. So that's what we are trying to do across the arts.
Yeah, it's it always feels like a privilege to be in a position where I help to support and facilitate the amazing work that all of you do, but it's been incredibly inspiring and heartening during this time to see the way that all of you have adapted and reinvented and focused on this connection and bringing opportunities for processing and bringing spaces of joy and supporting well-being. I wanted to hear more about, I know obviously you each are wonderfully dedicated to the SU-CASA programs that you were carrying out, but I know you all also have other projects and practices you're working on and are a part of different artistic communities and networks, and I'm curious about how you're staying connected to those networks, what the ways in which you're kind of processing this together, and how this moment has affected your other work as well. And Jing, you were already starting to talk about one of your projects. Maybe you can share a little bit more about that.
Sure. I think at this particular time, so continuing the workshops online doesn't only move forward my project, but also is a way for us to stay connected and to support each other. So people love to come back to the online workshop. So after we finished our original ensemble workshops, we started to design a kind of workshop that is more open, so that we could invite people's friends to come and join us and share their artistry and share their thinkings, and also share art practices with us. Like we invite musicians, poets, and also theater makers to our workshops. And that's one way we want to contribute to the art community. And also for myself, it's a very good time to do some writing, because I'm creating original theater pieces. And it's very important to have time to think about how I turn the research and the materials into a performance. And a challenge I have is that now I have to rethink everything, because all those research and workshops that I did them with the imagination of in-person performance, like everyone in the same space. And right now I need to think about new ways to do it online, because I don't think theaters will open very soon. And so I'm looking at digital art and online performance for inspiration. And I'm also constantly communicating with other artist friends So to make like weekly phone calls or online exchanges so that we can discuss and inspire each other and see what we can do with this new form of theater to both keep its theatricality and level of intimacy with people, and also make it accessible to more people.
I know it's hard to think about when we'll be able to be in a space like a theater together again. But yeah, that's exciting to think about the ways in which you're continuing to do that work online. Is there a particular project that you were hoping to present later this year that you're now re-envisioning?
Yeah,
for the online space?
yeah. So that project, it doesn't have a title yet, but the working title is The Art of Losing. It's a project created by immigrant ensemble members. So we all consider ourselves as artists, and we're creating a piece together. So right now it's my job and also my working partner's job to process all the things everyone have created and see how to make an online form of the performance. And we're hoping to have a Zoom performance not too far in the future. We're working on it.
I look forward to seeing that.
Also, it's also a project supported by LMCC.
And Natasha, how has your practice been going at this time, or have you expanded the hotline to other artists in your network or folks that you know?
Well, I did send via a social network, Twitter, inspired by my work in LMCC. If anyone, I am from Venezuela originally, but I had political asylum to live in the United States. So if they knew anyone in the senior stage of life who will nurture from a poem, that I would read them over the phone. And I got many direct messages from people. Can you call her? She will love to hear a poem. It's to find and to receive beauty through the use of words. For me, my very own practice has been very challenging, because trying to organize and change to the metaphysical realm my classes has taken all my energy. And I think poetry nurtures a lot of the process of retrospective, but right now I'm annotating, like I also had a temporary disability, and I'm very interested in exploring that in my writing. So I'm annotating how my body feels, taking in consideration that this is also a moment that we live day by day. We have not a day, we are going out this day in June. We don't know yet. So that I make an emphasis of that. Surround yourself by beauty today. Do something you love. And so I'm annotating that. It's going to be a lyrical essay. And what I'm doing, thanks to my students of SU-CASA program, is trying to experiment with the music of the English language, because all my work is in Spanish and I collaborate with translators. And this week I received a poem of mine in Greek, and I spent the whole day just looking at it. I don't speak Greek, but I think, wow, what about that reach now, that use of words are able to be perceived by so many people. And so I'm very interested in redesigning my program. It's taking all my energy as well, because when I imagine one of my students of this program looking at the window, we had an exercise, for example, in one of our classes, they have windows that look. They live in Washington Heights, so they look to the the George Washington Bridge. I'm sorry. And I said, well, the next time you look through that window, think what you can write, just very simple. And for me, it means a lot that we are giving them now poetry. She's not just standing there contemplating. She has poetry now. She can write that down, and that gives a lot of meaning to my own praxis. I just want to become a better writer for them, and to be more conscious about my language and their language, to keep building in me the capacity to help them.
Yeah. Oh, what an amazing exchange.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Lisa, you're already sharing how it's a good moment to be practicing at home. But yeah, what has your kind of experience been for your artistic process right now?
Yes, thank you, Anna. The thing is, yeah, these are devastating times, and we of course are all sensitive to that, and it can be extremely upsetting at times. But then you have your whole day ahead of you to focus on what's important to you. And unusually, in my general way of performing, and I have a guitar duo with Josue Perez, we play a lot of traditional Latin music for some community outreach concerts and libraries and places like that, which are also all closed. But another thing that we do is work on original music that my partner Josue is composing for guitar, and he has so many pieces that we haven't actually developed all the way. Since this whole thing started, he's been working on something new, and I'm the one who sort of puts it into the notation program once he's written a few pages or a few measures or erased a lot of things. So there's always a lot of back and forth going on, try to play it, get it up and running for the new pieces, and also sheltering in place with another person. You would think, well, you'll be playing guitar together all the time. Well, we're actually working on our separate projects much more. He's doing a lot of writing. I'm doing, some practicing of pieces that I haven't played in such a long time, or learning new music. And then the exchange with fellow artists, just because they do have the more downtime, and you're able to reach out to people at great distances, because this is kind of how you reach them anyway, not people that you see on a regular basis, but they just have that time even overseas, or now they're home, and find out, some new collaborations that they've come up with. So you're, kind of challenged to keep on not just going, but reach a new level of excellence for yourself, and, to lift up your community in a general way and be part of it, but more not to waste your time.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to know about the different kind of communities and networks you're all tapped into. I think we've been so focused on taking care of some of our older adult participants who we know are experiencing this in really challenging ways, and every neighborhood in New York, every senior center has a very different community and population, but I think I'm also really curious about, as much as artists are resilient and inventive, and creating these amazing exchanges in the broader community, I'm curious about what your kind of thinking and feeling right now is about what artists need, and what kinds of support is needed right now, what kinds of acknowledgement or opportunities are needed. I think that all of you have ways of creating value where others maybe don't see it as easily. And so maybe we can just take a little moment to hear kind of what some of your thinking around the needs of the artistic community are right now. Natasha, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, well, my background is quite complex. I'm coming from Venezuela, which is an ongoing tragedy for many, many years. So resilient, I know, you build it. So the best thing I think is an ongoing need. Artists are very fragile, and support economical and grants and artistic residencies is the best, because you are giving an artist time and peace of mind to think, reflect, learn, study, produce their work, because this is our way to find meaning in life as well, and to give something in this occasion of SU-CASA, build something in the community. And I think it's also, I mean, it's a very complex question. I felt very vulnerable, for example, last year, because I had a very big surgery. I was in a legal limbo while my case of political asylum, while I was waiting for that. But this weight, I mean, we have to gather tools mentally. Mental health is important. And I'm not even going to the field of healthcare, but we know, I guess it's giving artists this sort of opportunities like SU-CASA. That's the right answer, and that's the very precise answer. It gave me, for example, I can talk about my testimony, my very own experience. It gave me peace, I mean, tranquility and a safe net to produce time at the same time that I was building my community. Because that also gave me not just economical tools and time for my work, but it also gave me an opportunity to build a sense of belonging to the city of Manhattan and New York, and also where I live, which is Washington Heights. I now walk in these streets that I work with my older adults, participants. I know I have another purpose here. I know they're walking here in these streets. They go to the supermarket. I would love to share an anecdote with you of one of my senior participants. Public events are super important. And I don't know how we're gonna do now with this context, but in 2019, after we had this public event, which was a poetry recital with decorations and a brindis and everything, with wine afterwards, well, those who could drink or not. But she told me we had a couple of classes afterward and a guest visit. And one of them, she's now 86 today. She told me, can you believe? I was in the supermarket and someone I don't know stopped me and said, I really enjoy your poems. And it was, oh, wow, my student was just recognized in the supermarket by a stranger who was in the public event as a poet. A woman who she didn't finish high school. And she's been at her 86 years old, recognized in Washington Heights as a poet. I said, I have to continue doing this. This is everything. I cherish that anecdote a lot, because her life changed, and she knows that she's been, I don't know, esteemed by her neighbors as a poet now.
Yeah, it's incredibly powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And Lisa, could you share some of your thoughts around, the needs of artists right now?
Hi, yes. Well, the thing is, the isolation that the people, let's say we're talking about an older adult community, well, there are people that are really, really isolated, even beyond the types of people that could come to go to our workshops. At least they were getting out to their workshops. So it makes you think now, there are people who can't even do that. They're completely like in solitary confinement because of this situation now. That's the extreme. So as far as what artists need, so many of our art forms were, used to having a group, a live performance, a gathering of people, bring people to the community. And it was such an uplifting experience for people who normally maybe didn't get out to things, but because of the the programs through the Lower Manhattan kind of initiatives, that they were geared to people who were not regular subscribers to Lincoln Center or Carnegie Hall, people who wanted to go, but they didn't think it was for them or something like that. But now that category is going to be almost everyone if they can't go out to a thing. So there's going to be some kind of rethinking. I'm also a dancer, and I'm thinking, well, why don't they call on choreographers to, you know, reconfigure some of these spaces to maintain social distancing, or do something that we feel comfortably enough in New York City that it can go on in a different format. The technology is already here, some live interaction, instead of just thinking that people can all do this on their own, or listen to, you know, the mayor, which the governor trying to do well, but why not make it reach out to artists who have a lot of experience on working with limited resources, and, you know, maybe that could also be a way of artists getting support for their input on these matters. But we do have some experience in making the best of the situation.
Well, and such valuable knowledge and skills and research that I think could be, applied to a lot of different scenarios and fields. And Jing, how are you thinking about the needs of your artistic community right now?
So from talking to my artist friends, I think many of them face financial difficulties. That's definitely a need that they have right now. And also for some immigrant artists, their immigrant status, there's in terms of that, there's a lot of uncertainty. They're not sure that if they can continue to work or for how long, because everything is changing with this new COVID-19 situation. And talking about making theater now, I think what I feel I need is tools and techniques that can help me transform in-person performance into an online performance. There are a lot of softwares, skills that many people who do live streaming know much better than theater people. So I should learn those. And also, I feel we should look at research, because like the concentration level of people are different when they look at the screen, and also when the audience, they perceive a theater performance on screen, they have different feelings, different needs compared to in a theater. So what should we look at? What should we consider in terms of creating a new form of performance? I think research is also very important for us. And besides all those, I think it's also important to share among artists, because you can learn from each other to overcome some of the difficulties. For example, I have an artist friend originally from Chile, and she's done street theater for many years. So it's a time for me to learn from her, like how do you conduct performance on the street in an open space, and to do it for community members. That might be something we can do in the future if we cannot enter a theater space. We can try to turn the street into a theater.
Yeah. Thank you all so much. I would be open. I would be open to hearing anything else you are interested in, sharing or talking about this in this moment. But if you're open to it, I also wanted to see if you'd be willing to maybe share a little bit of your artistic practice with us. I don't know, Lisa, if you would be up for playing a little something for us. Or if Natasha or Jing, you'd like to read anything. I thought it might be a nice, just to get to experience some of that.
Well, what if Natasha reads something and I play along? En español.
En español.
Sí.
I can find my translations as well. So we empty inside of an old tree trunk. Feel its dry branches trembling by the boss. Vibrant, oh so sweet.
Thank you. Natasha, would you read it one more time for us so that we can get the audio clearly? I think that would be great.
Yes. I have to share that this is a process of English, writing in English. A partner here, like I tell my students, take a walk when it's socially responsible to do so. So this was after I took a walk here in Washington Heights in the High Ridge Park. The empty inside of an old tree trunk holds a honeycomb. Does it feel its dry branches trembling by the buzz? Vibrant, minimal shaking, oh so sweet.
Thank you. Jing, is there anything you'd like to read?
So what I have been doing are mostly interactive activities. So we basically play with the screen or play with objects. So maybe I can introduce a little bit to see if that's helpful. So one thing we did was like a body part dance, so that everyone can choose one body part and we all dance with that body part together on the screen with a lot of people doing it at the same time. And also we can like have requests for the whole group. And some requests we had during our sessions were that someone asked us to spin in the room, like with keeping the device in their hands and spin the room. And that's very beautiful. And another activity we did is that we asked people to create objects with paper in 5 minutes and tell a story about that. That was also very touching. For example, one of our participants, Jose, and he made it very simple because we don't always have all those art materials around. So he simply did a paper cone and told a beautiful story about how he decided to stop eating ice cream and how he misses it right now. And yeah, that's the kind of things we have been doing and sharing. It's really joyful. I wish you could be there and see what we're doing and join us someday.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. It's been really wonderful to spend this time together and hear how you're all doing a bit. Yeah, is there anything else anyone wanted to share about making work in this time or yeah, working with older adults at this moment?
So I think one thing I have been doing for my older adult members is that to provide scientific information for them, because they don't always have access to those information, and they really want to know like more facts about this virus, and they love to hear that from us. So I think that's a thing that has been helpful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to add as well that these phone calls I'm trying with my participants is because this is the right moment to be vulnerable. This is the moment. From leaders to artists, everyone has to be open to vulnerability. and is a different direction of this society and the whole world. And I would like now to also talk to this artist who had never taught to senior participant, older adults. I teach also in the college level. I have taught children, and as an artist, I have this dialogue. The richest dialogue I've had is with older adults, and as an artist, with our craft, we help them enjoy and embrace their process of aging, and it's a conversation that you dream of when you are finding your own way in your voice and your craft.
Hi, I would say as far as the older adults too, because I started teaching them when I was quite young, and not all the time, but in various projects. So my first experience teaching older adults were a group, a very large group, and they were blind and visually impaired. And I didn't have experience teaching them, but I knew the music and dance that they were interested in. But I would recommend for anybody who thinks, well, I don't know how to do it, you know, the older people will tell you what they need and what they want. Just listen to them. And, you know, before you know it, you're going to be an older person. So, don't, you know, it's not such a gap. If you're excited and interested in what you're doing, they'll pick up on that. If there's anything that would make it easier for them to get what you're doing, if you listen to them, they'll tell you what they need somehow. And they have a tremendous wealth of knowledge, especially about music and dance. So if you tap into that, it's going to be a very rich experience for you as well.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you all so much.